I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Leave me alone. What are these guys? I
looked at him, dude. He was so terrified by the look on the guy's face that was trying to attack me, because he knew immediately too something was very wrong. I mean, you just take one look at this guy and you're like, holy shit.
This video is proof that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu 100% works in a street fight. G'day guys, welcome back to another video. Before I get into it though, last month you may remember I did a giveaway for somebody to win one of these metallic posters behind me from displate.com. So I did a random draw of everyone who commented on the videos, and the winner is Iron Loss 1165, whatever your real name is. Iron Loss 1165, if you're watching this, reach out to me. Send me a DM or an email down below. I'm going to leave all my details down below. If I don't hear anything, then I will run the draw again and it'll go to somebody else. So hopefully you're watching this, man or woman. Not sure who you are, but congratulations. All right, so I don't know if you guys have seen this video yet. It's been doing the rounds on social media, but a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt named Chris Bauer was in Auckland, New Zealand for a competition. He was literally flying in just to compete in a Jiu-Jitsu tournament, and some crazy crackhead tried to mug him at like 9 AM in the morning, right in the middle of Auckland CBD, which is fucking insane. But he tells the full story of what happened, and I'm going to break down first the footage of him fighting off this guy, and then I'm going to play some of the interview he did on another channel called McDojo Life. So cheers to McDojo Life for sharing this interview. There's some crazy shit that he talks about in this interview that I just cannot believe took place in New Zealand. But anyway, here's the footage of this guy who apparently followed Chris through the CBD, tried to mug him. He was high on drugs, and the black belt, he tried to get away. He didn't want any confrontation. He just landed in a new country, which obviously no one wants to get in trouble with the police as soon as you land in a new country. You're not looking to get into a fight, especially if you're a trained martial artist. And this is something I think a lot of people don't realize about martial artists, is they're usually the ones trying to de-escalate and trying to avoid a fight. It's one of those deals where fuck around and find out, I guess. So this is obviously like a few seconds after Chris took him down, and he's got side control and then he's getting his back. You can hear the grunting from this deranged lunatic who's probably, let's be honest, high on amphetamines or something like crack, ice, I don't know what, but I've heard that people when they're on those sorts of drugs have crazy strength, and I believe it, and they also don't feel pain. So just imagine, like, this is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt fighting this guy. Imagine just a regular civilian trying to handle this guy, but he's got a dominant position here, and you're going to see this fucking idiot in the suit, trousers, and the white shirt trying to get in between them, which is the absolute last thing you want. If you're trying to control somebody and somebody else is trying to get involved, they got to fuck off, because if you get separated from the guy you're trying to control, then there's trouble. You want no separation at all.
I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Leave me alone. What are these guys?
So here he locks in the body triangle, and this guy, this fucking guy is trying to like pull him off. It's like, dude, leave me alone, man. So now he's on top mount and he's controlling his arms. He's already choked the guy out and he came to, and so he decided obviously the best position is to get on top mount and wait for the cops to arrive, which I think he's going to describe now.
My own information. I just arrived here from the United States this morning. My name is Chris Bauer. As I exited my hotel, this gentleman started to follow me around. He was getting very...
Gentleman's a very generous term for this guy. He's absolutely a fucking nutcase, crackhead, piece of shit.
Close to me, threatening me.
Yes, because I knew that
He was telling me he was going to take my money for his son because he needed money for his son. And I told him I was not going to give him any money. I asked numerous people throughout the city to call the police and help me. Many people failed. I also have that on video. I entered this store for my own safety. When I entered the store, I asked the staff to call the police.
Fighting training.
Then this man proceeded to attack me.
And you can see
I took his back, I choked him unconscious, and now I have him in the full mount position waiing for the police to arrive. Thank you, sir.
Fuck up, stop talking shit.
And here comes the police now.
So that's the footage. Obviously, everything wasn't caught on camera, which is a shame. There's probably security cameras that would have caught more of it, which I'd love to see. And this guy is probably the last person you want to try and mug, honestly. A Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt who's clearly in shape. Clearly a very strong guy. If you have cauliflower ears, like, no one should be fucking with you. That's like rule number one. But he did an interview on the channel McDojo Life, and he goes into a bit more detail, and there's some really interesting points he brings up, and pretty much just the lack of help from any civilians, any bystanders. Nobody wanted to have a bar of this, which is fucking insane.
I was awarded my black belt by Vicente Jr., who is a 5th degree black belt under Master Ricardo de la Hiva. I've been busy this year, traveling the world nonstop competing, man. I've traveled all over the world, man. I've been to Brazil 30 times, and I've only had one instance in Brazil where someone tried to rob my phone. And Brazil is crazy dangerous. And New Zealand is like the safest, one of the safest countries in the world, or supposed to be.
That's point number one that I want to bring up, is that he's saying New Zealand is one of the safest countries in the world, or it's supposed to be. It feels like to me, a lot of Western countries such as Australia, New Zealand, UK, Ireland, Canada, United States, where, I mean, maybe not United States, but countries that are supposed to be safer than third world countries, they're not that safe anymore. We've been seeing the rise in crime over the last few years. Without getting political about anything, it feels to me like these countries that are supposed to be safe are not that safe anymore. I just don't think you can assume that you're going to be safe in a country like New Zealand anymore, which is crazy.
But I was being, probably not very situationally aware, to be honest with you. I pulled out my phone and I was like, excited to be there. I just got there. In a new country, new city, pulled out my phone, was taking videos and pictures of the harbor. And just as I did, man, it's almost like, my guard wasn't up because I had my phone out, wasn't paying attention. This weirdo ran up behind me, literally behind me. He was in my space, in my ear, right behind me. He's like, give me your fucking money. And I turned around faster than you can imagine. It freaked me out so bad, man. Because as soon as I turned around, I instantly knew that I was dealing with some deranged lunatic. You could see that he was completely gone. And then he repeated it again. He said, give me your money. I said, no, man, I'm not giving you my money. I was like, stay the back, man. I was like, you need to stay the away from me. I didn't know if he had a knife. That was like...
So him saying that he was terrified, even though he was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, like, just because you trained in martial arts, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're bulletproof. Like, you don't know if somebody's got a gun or if they got a knife. And when he says he saw like the look on the guy's face, I understand completely what he's talking about. I was in Honduras when I was in my early 20s, and somebody broke into the accommodation I was sleeping in with a gun and pointed a gun at me. And I could see in this guy's eyes that he was crazy. There's a certain look in people's eyes when they don't give a fuck. You know that they will fucking shoot you, they will stab you. They're not there. It's like you can see right through them, and that's probably what this guy looked like. Like, he comes from America, he probably doesn't know what the gun laws are in New Zealand.
You could tell instantly that this guy was completely disheveled. He looked like he had been sleeping on the streets. He looked like, I didn't know whether he was out of his mind, like mentally, or whether he was under the influence of heavy amount of drugs, or both. It could have been both. But I turned around and I saw him, and I knew something was wrong right away. And I started backing up to create space and separation from him. And I was walking backwards, and I told him to stay the back. I said, you get any closer, we're gonna have some problems. And he started grunting at me and screaming at me. And I'm not sure if you've ever seen a bear charge a human, how they kind of like mock charge, or like a gorilla. He kept doing that to me, so I wasn't sure whether he was going to attack me or not. So I started walking backwards, and then I pulled out my phone and I recorded 2 quick recordings. I wish I would have got more, but I recorded videos of him starting to pursue me.
This creepy mother right here in the video, he's following me all over town. Just in case something happens to me, he's very strange.
And honestly, that's the terrifying part too, is not just that like you might get stabbed or shot or you might have to get into a fight, but it's like if you hurt this guy, the police are going to come and they're going to automatically assume that you've done something wrong. You've just beat up this fucking random guy and you're going to get thrown in jail and you're going to have to prove that you're the one who is being followed and attacked.
Started to walk further along the harbor. Gorgeous, man. It was like one of the most beautiful places.
I'm going to fast forward here a little bit because he talks about how the guy was following him for a long time.
Guys, something's really wrong with him. And again, everybody just avoided me. It's like, I remember one guy specifically said, he's like, hey man, he's like, there are no police around here. I'm like, what do you mean there's no police around here? I was like, there's got to be a police station or can you please call the police for me? And he's like, man, I'm busy right now. He's like, I'm working. Like he was like driving a taxi. So I was like, holy shit. And right then,
this is where it gets fucking super annoying. Like this guy is a foreigner who's just landed in a foreign country, so I'm guessing his phone probably isn't working. And he doesn't even know what number to call the police. I don't know what number you use to call the police in New Zealand. It's 000 in Australia. It's 911 in America. Like, I don't know what it is in the UK. It's different everywhere. He says that he was passing 10 to 20 people while this guy's chasing him. And no one wanted to get involved. And that's like a massive problem because people are so in their own lives, looking at their phones, thinking about their own issues, that when somebody's actually in trouble and they ask you for help, you're just like, oh, nah, I don't want the drama. That's fucked up, man. And that, as much as that pisses me off, it doesn't surprise me at all. It does not surprise me one bit because I've seen this shit in real life.
The guy starts chasing me around parked cars at the hotel. And then I'm like, holy shit, no one's gonna help me, man. And the guy's like, he's like, hey man, just look for a guy in a yellow jacket. The guy's in the yellow jacket walking around the streets of the police. And I'm trying to talk to him. I'm like, please. I was like, call the police. I need help. You know, you think like help and police are like universal words, but this guy, he's like, no, sorry, no English. And I'm like, come on, man, this is crazy. I looked at him, dude. He was so terrified by the look on the guy's face that was trying to attack me because he knew immediately too something was very wrong. So I ran to the coffee shop. And as soon as I ran into the coffee shop, I ran up to the register, the girl at the register, and I was kind of like, you know, breathing heavy, kind of like freaking out, like my adrenaline started pumping. I'm like, holy man. Now I was like, when I ran into her, I'm like, listen, this guy is chasing me. He's demanding my money. I said, there's something seriously wrong with him. I said, I've asked 20 people so far to call for police to help me, and no one was helped me. And this girl looked at me and she was like, oh my God. She was like, she picked up the phone. And as soon as she picked up the phone to call the police, the fucking guy started running towards the coffee shop.
So basically it took a young lady who was working behind a counter at a coffee shop to actually help this guy who's getting chased by a deranged fucking lunatic crackhead. What absolute pussies. Like the amount of people that he says he asked for help, men on the street that he asked for help and just ignored him. They all should be ashamed of themselves, man. They're absolute pussies. They don't know how to deal with confrontation. And because they don't know how to deal with confrontation, they just want to ignore it and pretend like it isn't happening. Not wanting to get involved with anyone's drama. Instead of being a good fucking person and helping this dude out who's just landed in a foreign country and is about to get attacked by some random crackhead.
He ran up to the coffee shop, and it was this large open doorway. Like the doors were open. And he was standing in the doorway and he looked at me and he put his arms out and he just goes, he starts grunting at me.
That's terrifying.
Holy shit, the whole coffee shop stopped because you could tell like there was this psychopath in the coffee shop, and it was like this fancy high-end coffee shop, and it was nothing but like rich looking business people in business attire. And the guy charges at me full speed and swings at me. And as soon as he does, I did like a level change and I blast doubled him right in the chest. And I took him right to the ground. And as soon as I did, I secured top side control. And the guy was like growling and like freaking the out, man. And he was just babbling this nonsense, this strength from that guy. Let me tell you, I was like, I told everybody I was impressed. I always imagined that's what it would be like to like try to fight somebody like on PCP. So he turns to his knees, and that's when I took his back and I locked up a body triangle. There was people trying to separate me. Not just the one guy in the video. There was a couple guys that were trying to separate. I kept telling them repeatedly, maybe 3 to 4 times. I remember telling them, I'm like,
I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Leave me alone.
I'm like, I basically told them to stop. I said, I'm a trained professional. I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I do this for a living. I have the situation under control. I don't know if they understood or what, but you could see how clueless they were, like trying to like help me or anything. But that was my biggest fear, man. Them like separating me from that guy, giving him any space whatsoever. That guy would have mauled someone to death in that coffee shop. But as soon as I secured his back, I grabbed his flannel jacket, inserted my thumb deep into the lapel up by his flannel, actually, not the lapel, but I had my thumb way up by his ear. And then my other arm went behind the back of his neck to create the choke. So I had the body triangle, and then I locked up the choke, and I told everybody, because the guy wasn't going to stop, man. I'm like, man, what am I going to do? Break his arm? I don't want to hurt the guy. I don't want to punch him. I don't want to kick him because, like I said, I'm in a foreign country. I don't know the laws, man. You don't want to get arrested anywhere in foreign countries. So I feel like I did everything to avoid the conflict.
But that's fucking awesome. The way he handled that from start to finish, absolute pro.
And then I turned him over and I put him in full mount so I could be like more aware of like my surroundings, you know, because there's like people trying to grab me and like pull me off and and I just like kept both of his wrists pinned to his chest so I could be more aware of my surroundings. I was like looking around me and then just waiting for the cops to come, man, because I knew the girl was in the process of calling him, and I kept asking everybody, like, please call the cops. Somebody please call the cops. And they kept saying, you know, that the police are on the way. The police are on the way.
So yeah, that's the whole story. What a fucking insane situation. Of all places, Auckland, New Zealand, to get jumped at 9 a.m. in the morning. And especially like why that guy decided to jump him. He's obviously insane. But a few things that really come to mind when I watched this interview is like, first of all, every major city in the West seems to be fucked right now with violence and drugs. And it seems like the government and the police aren't really doing anything about it. I don't know why. Number two, the amount of people that this guy had to ask just to call the police for him and that just completely ignored him is shameful. And those people obviously have no idea how to deal with any kind of confrontation. They're too scared. They don't want to be bothered. They don't want their day to be ruined by getting involved in anything, which absolutely sucks. People should be out there looking after each other and helping each other out. If somebody's coming up to you and asking for help, just something as simple as calling the police, like you should be able to do that. And number three, being trained in any martial art, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, boxing, is going to help you in this sort of situation. But he did the right thing, I think, trying to run away first of all and get away from this guy, and then going somewhere where there was cameras, because if you get into a fight with somebody and there's no witnesses, there's no cameras around, you're going to have some explaining to do to the police, and that's a situation you definitely don't want to be in, especially in a foreign country. But good on this guy, he handled it the right way. Good on the girl who called the police for him. Everyone else should be fucking ashamed of themselves. They're absolute pussies in my opinion, and they need to start taking martial arts classes, because if he had run into somebody else who was trained in some form of martial art, then maybe he would have got some help. I hope this proves to people who think that BJJ is gay and BJJ doesn't work. Obviously, there's going to be people that say, well, that if there was more than one person, then he would have been fucked. Yeah, obviously. Or if this person had a weapon, he would have been fucked. But it doesn't matter what martial art you're trained in. If there's 2 or 3 people attacking you, you're pretty much fucked. Maybe a kickboxer has a better chance because they're going to be able to strike you from distance. But I think being trained in BJJ is way better than being trained in nothing. And who knows, maybe if there was 2 guys, he would have been able to choke one guy out and then go on to the other guy. But it definitely proves to me that there's a lot of passive people out there that need to understand that these sort of things can happen to anybody. If it can happen to that guy, it can happen to anybody at any time of day. But anyway, that's just what I think. If you have a different opinion, let me know down below in the comments. And if you made it this far, I appreciate it. Please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.